WWE is now billing the Survivor Series as The Undertaker's final farewell. You can't see me right now, but if you could see me, you would see that I barely was able to say that with a straight face. The Undertaker's final farewell. How many final farewells did we think that we've seen? This is the first time they're actually billing it, promoting it as the final farewell, to be perfectly fair. Usually it's the fans who just see that, the end of WrestleMania 33 being the most obvious thing. They didn't come right out and say it, but they sure did want you to think that that would be the last that you were going to see of The Undertaker. And I feel like we've had a few moments like that. Now they're actually promoting it as the final farewell. Survivor Series takes place on November 22nd. That marks 30 years to the day that he made his debut on TV. And it really is the perfect place for him to close out his career once and for all. I know a lot of people will disagree and say that you can't do it there, it's got to be at WrestleMania. Or you can't do it there because, there's no fans in the building. And I will agree with you on that. But still, 30 years to the day, to the very pay-per-view, it just feels right. The thing is, I don't trust this. I don't trust this, and I don't trust them. I am expecting him to be interrupted. He may give a very nice speech, which would be very out of character for The Undertaker. But if this is going to be his final appearance, then this has to be the traditional Undertaker entrance. I don't think this can be the American Badass or just Mark Calloway walk into the ring, because people are going to want to see that one last Undertaker entrance, even though, obviously we're going to see plenty of The Undertaker making cameos on TV in the years to come. There's nothing harmful about him doing his entrance. The Undertaker, for the most part, is basically just an entrance at this point. I'm sorry to say, but that's what he is. And you can keep doing your entrance. So we'll see Undertaker cameo. It's not like we're never going to see him again. But if they are billing this as the final Undertaker appearance, then I don't see how you don't do the traditional dead man Undertaker entrance. You know what I'd like to see? Is him coming out. I mean, he can come out to his current music and all that. I'm not saying go back and just do everything the way it was done in 1990, but I'd love to see him come out with the gray gloves, wearing the old, cloak costume. Even, they have to make a new one to kind of mirror the way that he was dressed when he made his debut. Gray glove Undertaker. That's the very first Undertaker we ever got to see on TV. If this really is going to be the last, formal appearance for him in the ring at a major event, I would love to see one more appearance by Gray Glove Undertaker. But I don't expect this to be it. I expect him to be interrupted. I expect him maybe even to be attacked. And it will lead to a match at WrestleMania, because Vince McMahon does not want The Undertaker to retire. Even if The Undertaker wants to retire, Vince McMahon does not want The Undertaker to retire. Undertaker admitted as much when he said that when he saw the initial final cut of the last episode from the Last Ride documentary, he wasn't happy with it. Because it was going to be the send-off for The Undertaker, and Vince McMahon was not prepared. Now, maybe Vince McMahon just looked at it and said, look, if we're going to do this, I don't want you to announce it at the end of a documentary. We got Survivor Series coming up, 30 years. Let's wait until then. But you don't think Vince McMahon is not going to try to convince Undertaker? One last program, one last match. Do you got it in you? Remember when Undertaker finally texted Vince and told him, okay, I'm in for WrestleMania this year? Because Undertaker was on the fence. He didn't know physically if he could do it. And when he realized he could, he texted Vince and he's like, I'm in. Or I know, he texted him a video or something of him running the ropes and working out. And I think he said Vince McMahon's response back was just something like, fuck yeah, or something like that. Because Vince McMahon is not ready to let The Undertaker go. He's going to run this guy into the ground until he has to wheel himself down to the ring in a chair of wheels. So excuse me if I don't buy into this nonsense about this being the farewell of The Undertaker. The one thing that is good, with Sting no longer being under contract with WWE, his contract lapsed many months ago. He actually has not been under contract with them, apparently, for a number of months. Maybe 5 or 6 months. but they just pulled all of his remaining merch from WWE Shop. It's very similar to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar's contract ended. They had about a 5 or 6 month period where they could still sell his merchandise on the website, but then once that ended, they immediately pulled all the Brock stuff. And that's what they just did with Sting. So, it doesn't look like they have any kind of business relationship anymore with Sting. And hopefully that puts this to bed once and for all, this idea that they're going to do Undertaker against Sting. I think most people kind of understand that that's just not going to happen. There are still some people who are hoping. There are people hoping maybe they could even do it cinematically. But this should put that to bed once and for all. This idea that they've been holding off and waiting and they're going to finally do some kind of Undertaker-Sting match. It ain't happening. It's not happening. I do agree with the people who say that it sucks if this is going to be truly a farewell for him, that it happens in the Thunderdome in front of a bunch of virtual screens. You know, even AEW, they have a certain number of people in the crowd. Last night, they had 1,000 people. That is the most number of fans that AEW has had for a show since March in the building at one time. WWE has not yet gone back to having people in the buildings outside of having a very, very limited crowd at the COVID Coliseum for the NXT shows. But that's it. So Undertaker bidding farewell to everybody, bidding farewell to a bunch of virtual screens and having fake, thank you Taker chants, let's say, piped into the building. It does not feel right. It doesn't. But the circumstances are what they are. And you're never going to have a better chance here. 30 years to the day. Could not have timed it any better. It does suck, though, that they won't have people in the building. The other reason also is not only do I think that there's a very good probability that he gets interrupted by somebody, and that is the first seed planted for a WrestleMania match. Don't forget, they are going to go back to Saudi Arabia. And The Undertaker has appeared on many of the Saudi shows. He's wrestled, I don't even know, how many, they've probably had, I'm guessing, maybe half a dozen or so Saudi Arabia shows so far. If he hasn't been on every single one of them, I think he's been on the majority of them. So for him, he's getting a big payday out of it. They may well be requesting that he be on the show. They're always looking for those big legends, those legendary names. Vince McMahon calls him up one day and says, look, we have an idea for the next crown jewel, sweet Saudi money show, and we want you to be on the show. We're gonna pay you $1 million. You think Undertaker is gonna go, don't call me anymore and hang up? It's hard to turn that kind of money down. So no, I don't believe this is going to be the end for The Undertaker. But they are building the entire theme of the show around 30 years of the dead man and the big farewell. I am looking forward to part 2 of the Broken Skull sessions. That same day, Survivor Series Sunday, part 2 on the WWE Network is dropping, of the sit-down that Stone Cold did many months ago with The Undertaker. They probably sat there filming 4 or 5 hours worth of content. They only showed us about 2, and now we're getting the next part. So I'm looking forward to that. I think today, the documentary on Paul Bearer drops on the network, so I will probably be checking that out as soon as I am done with this podcast today. In fact, I might check that out. So they have a lot of good content. Undertaker-related content coming to the network. Farewell to The Undertaker? Yeah, I don't think so.